If you did, you would have seen that Sport Oz has done some considerable work in providing a framework for all different levels of sport. They do include recreation in it, but I must say we are trying to talk with Sport Oz about how we can extend that more recreation approach. And at OCA level, right down to our state level, we're engaging with them on that. Unfortunately, we did see some bad news come out this week on education, that CSU have cancelled some outdoor education courses. We are trying to get on the front foot to work with them and see how we can not only reverse that, but support them into the future with increasing that again. But the good news is that they kept their outdoor recreation certifications there. So again, it's a sign of the times with what we're facing, and unfortunately, because of the nature of our courses, they're highly casualised. It tends to be an easy option for a lot of the universities. So what we need to do is, again, like we've said a couple of times in our sessions, is we need to work together to build the notoriety of this sector. We need to make it a choice for career pathway, and build from the ground up and support the universities in this space. This week we actually applied for a grant as Outdoors New South Wales and ACT through the Small Business Month activities, hoping to really bring you some really excellent content in the month of October, which is Small Business Month, because looking around who's here today, most of you are small businesses, and it's really important that we support you in some of the tools and resources that you can find at your fingertips and don't have to search yourself. So hopefully we'll be successful in that grant and we can bring you some more activity in October. Outside of the media training that we had a call for an incident response team, which is designed of a bunch of you all across New South Wales and ACT to come together and be a response team and support those that might need it at the time that we don't want anything to happen, but may. And great, we've already had 3 volunteers to come up to that. We haven't started with our meetings yet. I wanted to put another call out if anyone is interested in being part of that incident response team, to please put their name forward and let me know, and we'll start coordinating some of those meetings. Tip of the week. I've spoken with some of the operators, and I must say that some simple things like checking in with staff that are either on JobKeeper or disconnected to their organisation has been a key for me in talking to them and making sure that their staff is still there when they need them. So if you haven't touched base with any of your staff that are either laid off or on JobKeeper, please check in with them, and not only for a mental health sake, but also, you know, when you do need that support, that they are engaged with your business again. A reminder on the grants. So Service New South Wales has still got the 2 going, which is one for bushfires. That 10,000 is still available to apply if you haven't applied for that already. And then the Service New South Wales COVID grant, which is the 3,000 that can go towards any professional advice or assistance that you may need. So that's a very quick overview, but I wanted to highlight again what we spoke about last week, which is the insurance inquiry. And as a lot of you know, we've had many discussions in this space over the Connect and Shares. So I am absolutely privileged to ask Dr. Craig Latham, Deputy Ombudsman, who is on the call here, to unmute. I'm just trying to find you there. There you are. How are you?
Well, thanks. There's actually 2 of us here, Jacinta as well.
Okay, hello, Jacinta. Wonderful. And
Jacinta's got the lead on this, so I'm going to thank you for handing it to me, but I'm going to also hand it to her to at least start. So.
Hi everyone. Sorry for just seeing a phone number on the screen. Technical things means we've got you on a phone, but we can see the videos and the slides. So we're on video if anybody wants to open up their participants section. So as you know, we've launched an inquiry into the insurance sector and how it relates to small business. We've been hearing quite a bit about the difficulties that businesses have been facing, particularly in the outdoors and venture areas. So we're really keen to get as strong of an understanding and as strong of a footing as we can in how it's really impacting all of you. So we're going to be hearing from a lot of people, but the best people we want to hear from right now is the small businesses that this is impacting their day-to-day lives or their business continuity or their risk. And really by understanding what's happening to you, we can understand what's happening more broadly, and then we can tailor our inquiry to sort of address the big issues that are coming out.
And we're really cognizant that the outdoor adventure and other sports and things are critical at this time, as we don't have the cruise ships, the trips over to Asia, that local sport and holidays are going to become so critical. And we're already hearing this, for example, sort of up in northern Queensland, that they're actually doing quite well in terms of like the Whitsunday cruises and things like that. So understand the real importance of insurance for the industry to make sure that you can actually have the opportunity, one of the few opportunities that COVID has actually presented.
Very much so. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you so much. And as a lot of people on the call know, there has been a lot of discussion with some insurance brokers as well that are heavily engaged with our sector because of the nature of what we do. So we're really pleased to have you today. And certainly I'll share my screen again, which highlights your links to the inquiry and also the survey link. So is there anything else that you'd like people to take on board, or did you want some quick feedback now?
Yeah, well, the survey will step people through and give you an idea at least what we're initially after. And we've got a number of boxes there where you can, like if you think we've missed the point, or, you know, there's something special to you, so that you could, there's boxes there that you can actually put that special thing. And we're really keen to hear the weird stories, which may not be weird. So often we get the weird story in respect to one business and realise, stuff, this is a weird story for a heap of businesses. So that sort of thing would be really important. We're really interested in, I can't get insurance, insurance is priced wrong, insurance requires me to undertake other things that are just going to kill the business or whatever, you know, other obligations, or of such a level we can only get a limited level of insurance. Anything like that gets in the way of the smooth operating a business, we'd really like to hear.
Yeah, wonderful. I'll just quickly open it up. Would anyone like to snapshot, instead of hearing it from me again, where our discussions have been and some of the challenges that we're seeing in this sector? Come on, David.
In a general sense, with public liability, we have problems from time to time, but I think that most businesses that have good operating procedures have stayed with a broker and insurance company over time, and and are meeting the requirements of the insurance system, can obtain insurance. Sometimes we think that insurance is a bit expensive, when in actual fact it's a critical part of our business structure. If you've ever had a claim, you really need a good broker, good insurance company to look after you. So there is that side of the thing as well.
Wonderful, thanks, David. And just so you are aware, Jacinda and Craig, obviously a lot of the discussion has been around trying to involve the brokers in our day-to-day business because of the nature of what we do. But yes, a lot of our businesses have really struggled in gaining back the insurance if they have put it on hold during COVID. And that's certainly something that a lot of our businesses have faced. A lot of them have been warned by their brokers not to put it on hold and not to cancel it in a period of inactivity because of that issue of regaining it. And yeah, we've got quite a few in that space, unfortunately. But yeah, the clever ones and the ones that are very much bringing their brokers into their business have managed to really maintain that insurance. I think the question then comes into cost and things that are occurring at the moment, because as we know, the insurance sector works in a space where the market's great, they flourish. The market's not great at the moment, so you know they're like a business like everyone else. But certainly, I'm sure everyone will fill out that survey, won't you all? And make sure.
Can I just ask on the brokers? Are there specialist brokers for this industry, or is it just like any insurance broker that you use?
We do have specialists, and I'm just looking at the attendee list because we normally have one on the phone most Fridays, and I cannot see him there. So, but yes, there are specialist brokers. One in particular that's been very involved with the sector and actually come to these forums to share his knowledge or their knowledge is Affinity. They are heavily in the equine and outdoor sector. There's also AB Phillips, who is in this sector as well, and I can't think of the other one. If anyone else can remember, throw it out there. GLI, I think it is, something like that.
GJ, Laurie.
Thank you. So yeah, those guys are definitely in the sector and specialists in that area. But yeah, then a lot of operators don't use them as well. So I think they struggle more because they don't understand the sector. But yeah, there are specialists.
Yeah, because that's, I think, a really important point that we need to follow up on as well, because we'll always be looking for potential solutions here as well, and it might be to put our finger on that for certain industries that you do need to seek out the specialist, and then we'll need to work out sort of how do you find the specialist? Is there a list of these things? Is it through the industry association? How is it that small business should navigate this? And that's likely to be one of the sort of outcomes that we'd be looking for.
Yes.
Make it as easy as possible for people to get the insurance they need that takes their risk and their cost into impact, because it really is absolutely vital.
Yes, yeah, absolutely agreed. And I think what we're trying to do is make our activities and our providers and businesses a lot easier to do what they do best. And I find that a lot of the red tape that is through this process could be minimised. Wonderful.
We're also quite interested, if you're in regular contact with your broker, please let them know that we'd love to hear from them directly as well.
Sure.
The website has a email address, inquiries with an I, at asbethio.gov.au, and you're free to email us. We'd love to hear from your brokers and anybody else, any other industry stakeholders, which for insurance is almost all small businesses.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jacinta. And thank you, Craig, so much for your time in being here today. It's really important to the sector that they're being heard and that you're supporting the journey that they're having. Thank you, guys.
Thanks all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Feel free to stick around if you want to hear what's going on. Okay.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you. So yeah, guys, please just reiterate, if you wouldn't mind jumping in and doing that survey, no matter what your circumstance. It's really important that the outdoor sector has a voice in this because of the challenges that some of you are facing and some of the good stories too. So there is a perspective of balance. So going to today's speakers, today is a lot about inclusion. So first of all, I'm going to introduce you to Mike Garnett, who's from Wheelchair Sports. So Mike, can you unmute and show us where you are? I'm just trying to find you. There you are. And I'll stop sharing so people can actually see you. Fire away, Mike.
Great. Good morning, Lauren. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you online this morning, and thanks for the opportunity to tell you a little bit about us, I suppose, and also where our organisation's going and what we're going to build in the next 6 months, because we think it will be a really significant unlock for adaptive sport and recreation in New South Wales and the ACT. So I'll pause there, but tell you a little bit about us just quickly, because we're actually going to take on quite a different role now in the sector. So our organisation is called Wheelchair Sports New South Wales, about to become Wheelchair Sports New South Wales ACT on August 31, just to pay respect to the fact that we have been operating in the ACT for a very long time. So obviously I see Outdoors New South Wales ACT has done the same thing. We've been around since 1961, and our organisation was born of the spirit that came out of rehab hospitals when people with disabilities were left, really very much in rooms with no opportunity to get outside and enjoy what other people were able to enjoy, which is sport and recreation. And so we started in 1961, we've been going ever since, and really our focus has been very much on the core wheelchair sports during that time. So you may be familiar with wheelchair basketball, wheelchair tennis, wheelchair rugby, wheelchair Aussie rules, and wheelchair racing. So they're the big 5 wheelchair sports that we look after and have been doing for a long time and will continue to do. Alongside that, though, is the fact that there's a number of sort of big trends happening in our space, and I say our collective space alongside you as practitioners in this area as well, that mean someone's got to act and someone's got to move in New South Wales ACT, because people with disabilities are simply not being served in the best way that they could be served. And so we've decided to take that role on, and I want to tell you about that. But there's 3 big reasons for us making the move that we're going to make. And the first is that there are so many more great service providers for people with disabilities in 2020 than there ever have been before. And isn't that great that we live in an era where instead of there being a handful of things for people living with disabilities, actually there's so many wonderful providers, whether that be in the outdoor and recreation space, as many of you are, or in the organised sport space. So first of all, we think how great it is that we live in an era where there's so many people doing so many great things. However, unfortunately, it's very hard to find. And as a community, perhaps, of providers in both the active recreation and organised sports space, there isn't that one place that everyone can go to say, okay, I want to get more active. Where do I go? How do I find these providers? And there's a huge gap in our state, and we're going to fix that. And so I'll tell you a little bit about that in a second. The other move that's very much on in our space is this idea of talking about sport and recreation together. And so, as an example, the National Sports Convention in Melbourne last year would usually be talking about elite sport. Last year, the convention was opened by a representative of the World Health Organization. And so what a shift we see now where, thank goodness, we live in an era again where we are now talking about sport and active recreation together. And I suppose on one hand, and I sound like I'm arguing against my friends in the organised sports space here, but once upon a time we bought the idea that a gold medal in some sort of a choose sport would then encourage all of us to go out for a run. We know in an impact measurement era now, that's very hard to make that case. And in fact, if we can encourage people into the outdoors en masse, we know that the investment in that sort of activity can return enormous benefits to us, both the physical benefits, mental health benefits to those that participate, the social benefits to our community, and even to an extent the economic benefits around productivity. So that's the second big reason that we need to build this website that I'm going to tell you about, because the move is on to rebalance investment and attention from government across both sport and, of course, active recreation. And the third reason we want to do something about it is because New South Wales is the most fragmented state in the country. And we're very passionate about our state, both New South Wales and the ACT. And when we look around the country, the biggest state actually should be leading in this space, and we're not. And so on behalf of the state, and we're very proudly from New South Wales and the ACT, we want to do something about that. So let me tell you about it. So we're going to build the country's first adaptive sport and recreation online hub. It'll be a website launching in March 2021, and it is specifically designed for people who would like to get more involved in adaptive sport and active recreation. And we say adaptive very intentionally because it will be designed for broader groups of people other than just those living with disabilities. One of the things that you may all have experienced at different times, and I certainly did, having come into the disability space, was the term disability for a lot of sub-communities is problematic. So there are communities of people, and we would say the wheelchair community is very comfortable with the term disability. However, those in the brain injury community, for example, those living with PTSD, a whole bunch of sub-communities who we know are interested to get involved in adaptive sport and recreation are very uncomfortable with that term disability. So we've moved well away from that term. We won't describe the people who will access the Adaptive Sport and Recreation Hub. We'll be talking about the great offers and the things that have been adapted so more people can participate. And we think when we move the conversation away from labelling people to talking about the great offers that you will, as practitioners, have for people and that members of the organised sport community will have, that's the big unlock to make sure that anyone really who would like to get more involved in adaptive sport and recreation can get involved. I must say, one of the things that, and those on the call today may have experienced this as well, I've never met anyone in my 18 months with this organisation say, I don't want to get involved in this space. I don't want to have my offer tailored and adapted so that more people can get involved. But I have met plenty of people who have said, I just don't know how to do it, and it frightens me because I'm afraid of saying the wrong thing. I don't know what equipment's required. There's a whole bunch of fears that exist around this. And my personal example of that is I sat with Louise Savage, who is our patron and perhaps Australia's greatest ever Paralympian. And I said to Louise, as the patron, and now I'm CEO, you and I get to get photographed a lot together. What's the right thing for me to do? Should I stand with you or should I sit with you? I don't know what to do, and I'd like to understand what you think is the best thing to do. And I said, what does the community think? And she said, well, the problem for you is the community doesn't think in one way. So really what you're going to have to do is ask everyone. And if you ask me, I don't care what you do. So I said, well, that's not very helpful, Louise. Thanks a lot. But I suppose the point that I took from it is that it is scary sometimes when it's new. And what we're going to do here is create something that gets the language right and that invites people in. So most importantly, to come back to this idea is that we have many great providers, yourselves included, in the adaptive sport and recreation space. There's a move on to rebalance conversations in government funding and attention across both active sport and recreation, which is great. And we need to take New South Wales from last to first because we're pretty proud of our state. And we think New South Wales and the ACT should actually be leading in this area. So the website will be live in March, and we put together an advisory committee. And Laurie, you've gratefully, well, from our point of view, we're very grateful for your participation on that advisory committee representing the outdoors space. And so we look forward to welcoming you to our next advisory committee meeting. For us, just to clarify a few things, there's no, the economic model of this is funded fully by a corporate partner of ours. So there's no cost to providers to be listed on the site, and there's no cost to participants to search and find the opportunities they would like to find. So, so that's point one. No one pays anything here. It's fully funded. It is just a gift, really, to the people of New South Wales and the ACT who would like to get more involved in adaptive sport and recreation with you all. So that's point number one. The second point is that there will be a quality assurance process that we'll put in place, an application process for providers, so that we can encourage you to reflect on your businesses and ask the sorts of questions that we know will be required for people who want to get more involved in adaptive sport and recreation. So we don't see that so much as a hurdle to get involved, but actually a benefit, because it's about saying, well, there'll be a checklist of things to ask about. And in fact, if at that point, you're not too sure whether you are ready to take on people who require some adaptation, then there'll be an opportunity to have a conversation and to get you ready for these people to be able to come and enjoy your offers. So I want to be really clear about that. We will go shoulder to shoulder with you on it. We'll walk with you to get you ready to welcome more people, more paying customers, more people that want to get involved in your activities. So I think that's really important because, as I referenced earlier, there is a lot of fear from people when they get involved in the adaptive sport and recreation space. It is new. You do worry about saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing. Again, another example was I said to one of our board members who is a wheelchair user, when you arrive, we'll go for a walk over and grab a cup of tea. Now, I just say that because that's what we say. And then I've got this terrible fear that I'd said the wrong thing. And he said, well, we will go for a walk. I'll roll, you walk, no problem at all. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that the intent in this space I've learned is the right thing. If you're trying to do the right thing, then as a general statement, you're in good hands and you're in good space. But we will go with you on that. So that's the second part. And thirdly, it's just very exciting. We think we're going to change the language here to adaptive sport and recreation. We would love to work with you all, and through Laurie's leadership, we would like to engage with you over time and in preparation for the March launch of this new website. We don't have the brand yet. We're working with a fantastic branding partner to get that right. We've got our digital partner engaged to build the website. And we have our evaluation partner as well, which is coincidentally Dr. Lindsay Rees, who is on the board of Outdoors New South Wales ACT, of course, and really, for mine, one of the best thinkers in research and evaluation in the country and in the sports space, if not around the world. So we're very lucky. We've got a great team together. And today was really about saying we are going to build the country's first adaptive sport and recreation website for people. We're going to try and reach as many people as possible and send them to you to get more involved. And if you're ready straight away, we'll get you involved straight away and listed on the hub as a provider. If you're not ready, we'll walk with you until you are, because we're really passionate about making this a success.
Brilliant, Mick. Thank you so much. And this is so exciting because with some of my history, and some of you have heard even from Get Connected yourself with Destination New South Wales, they've got an entity for tourism providers, which is in this space that they feed through their portal, but it doesn't. They don't take most of what's presented here today on call. They don't allow those products to list on their site because they're not tourism operators. So there's often this gap, and it's so pleasing to see this project. It's very exciting, and I can't remember the latest figures. Back when I was a community services manager, it was 1 in 4 people had a disability, and I don't know what the stats are today, but certainly it's amazing to see the depth and the breadth of the market and their inability to find things that suit their need. So well done. Really excited to be on board, and I encourage everyone to jump behind it and make this a tool and an opportunity for them. Thank you again.
Indeed. Well, you're very welcome to connect with me further afterwards, and thanks for the opportunity to have a chat. Thanks, Laurie.
Wonderful. And stick around yeah, enjoy the rest of the session.
I certainly will.
Wonderful. And just on Louise, oh my God, I've never met such a humble person, can I say? She's amazing, Louise Savage. I had a bit to do with her at SOFA, and yeah, crazy woman, but love her to death. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Pete, I want to introduce Pete Griffiths. Some of you may know Pete. He's the CEO of Australian Camps Association and a good partner of ours. And I'm sure he's sick of my calls, but yeah, can I welcome Pete to the forum, and he's got some exciting news in this space as well.
Thanks, Laurie. Yeah, there's a lot going on, is there not, at the moment, and I won't ever say unprecedented times apart from that one time then. Thanks for the opportunity to talk a bit about the Australian Camps Association and our work with inclusion. If you hear a scraping sound, that'll be my chair, or my soapbox, I should say, being dragged up to the microphone, because it's a bit of a thing I'm quite keen on at the moment. I'm just going to share my screen. I've not got a lot of slides, so don't worry about that. But I'll see if I can get a few bits and bobs up. Okay, hopefully you can just see a logo there at the moment. To start off with, the Australian Camps Association is actually involved in the physical structure of camps versus camping. So I want to make that fairly clear from the beginning. And as far as I'm concerned, we work closely with organisations like Outdoors New South Wales to support the recreation side of camping, but I'm more interested in the actual function of a camp. And the association started back in the early 80s with the Camping Association of Victoria, which merged with the Camping Association of Queensland, South Australia and Tasmania in the early 2000s to form the Australian Camps Association. And notice I did miss out New South Wales there, because as Mick says, New South Wales can be a bit fragmented and wasn't part of the situation at that time. we really have two platforms, two distinct platforms. And the first one is to help
Sorry,
groups
Pete.
from any background.
Just to let you know, all we're seeing is the front page at the moment. Are you flicking?
That's okay. I'm not flicking yet.
Okay, good. Okay.
I hope I'm not. Yep. So, so we've got two roles. The first role is to help groups from any background, any interest group, any demographic to get access to the benefits of a camp experience. So obviously for most of us, the lowest common denominator is schools. I'm interested in everybody, families, church groups, sporting groups, disability groups, older people, people who don't have an English as a first background, and so on. So our job is to help them get access to a great experience. And backing it up is our secondary role, which is to help our member camps around the country, and in fact anyone who wants to be part of this, to do a better job of providing a great experience for those groups. So having said that, the work of initially the Camping Association of Victoria, and now our association, has been very much about accessibility and inclusion from the word get-go. And this is a document produced in 2004, and it's called an accessibility checklist. It's been incorporated into the Australian Tourism Industry Council's accreditation scheme, and it's used widely to this day. But you'll see down the bottom is a little, whoops, that's not what I want to happen. Down the bottom, it has a little logo, People Outdoors. I'll come back to that shortly. Now, we have this particular document here, and that's our up-to-date version of it. So there's been a lot of work done in the last couple of years around pushing forward from, I suppose, from accessibility to inclusion. And to me, that's a very different thing. So we're interested in including groups from every background. I'll let that roll for a moment. Every background at all. So this particular document here will be launched next week. It's not just a checklist. It's actually in two forms. It's a digital version. You can download it to a tablet or a device, walk around a site or an activity, and there's an editable version where you can check things through as you go. And it's also a hard copy. But the content's more than just a checklist. It actually starts at the very beginning, which is, apart from the fact we have an ethical responsibility to be more inclusive, full stop, we also need to work out or be aware that inclusion is very much about business. So being more inclusive gives you access to more markets. It gives you access to more people. And I think, as we've found lately with the current situation when schools aren't travelling as much, it's important to diversify your business if you want to get ahead. Now, the great thing about this document is that it actually, obviously I've set the PowerPoint up wrong, so it's scrolling by itself. The great thing about it is it starts with the lowest, or the most important part, which is culture, organisational culture. It's one thing to be providing a site and activity which has a wheelchair ramp, or perhaps has different languages involved. But if you're not culturally something more inclusive to start with, it's just going to be a tick and flick. So we're more interested in actually being about more culturally aware of people around you, whether Indigenous, in a wheelchair, or poor mobility, or poor sight, or older people, doesn't matter. If you can crack on with this, this is good. And I'll put a link to the actual webinar, which we're launching this next week, into the chat shortly. So this thing wants to go by itself, so I'm going to let it now. There are two things that we actually do get involved in a fairly major way. And one is People Outdoors. People Outdoors is a program for people with disabilities to get into camps. It's been running for 30 years. We've had literally thousands upon thousands of folks out over those 30 years. It's a part of the association. So People Outdoors actually uses our team of disability support workers and volunteers to help people get out and about, whether it's to help with mobility, whether it's to help with personal care, whatever it might be. And we use our member camps to actually deliver the program. That's been going really, really well. It's Melbourne-based historically. It's now in regional Victoria, and we are hoping to push that across the country as we are NDIS registered now. So I have dreams of bigger picture here. That's the first program we run. But the second one is this one, which is the Great Getaways. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen because it's going to get annoying as it rolls. So the Great Getaways are basically for people over the age of 55 who are loosely considered seniors. It's a little bit insulting to some people because I'm well over that age and I don't feel like I'm a senior. But there are two or two or three things that are effective here. One is older people are often socially isolated, and that's a real indicator of mental health. So we're trying to bring people who are socially isolated in the older people community together in a camp setting to form more friendship groups, if you like, extend their social circles. And the second thing is all of us have a view of ourselves as being younger and fitter than we actually are. I think the last research I saw said that most of us feel like we're 15 years younger than we actually are. So, you know, if you said, I'm 60, I feel like I'm 45. Well, unfortunately, I feel like that, but I'm actually 60. And that has implications for my mobility, my flexibility, my strength. So these Great Getaways programs are about benchmarking people's abilities and saying, well, look, you feel like you're really fit, but actually, if you don't work on your flexibility and your strength now and your endurance, the next step is going to be inevitably you will have a fall, that wonderful catchphrase, and then you'll find yourself in a home, you lose your mobility. So these programs are about trying to get people to benchmark their actual physical state and to get better at changing their behaviour and more active. That program is now launched in Queensland, or was briefly launched in Queensland and will shut down for obvious reasons. And again, we look to run that across the country because we have an ageing population. It's that simple. So we're all getting older as a state, as a country. People over the age of 55, 60 are getting to be a far more, influential part of the community. But also, we're all living longer. And unfortunately, even living longer comes with its drawbacks. So again, the research will say that we have a longer life, but we don't have a longer healthy life. So the last 15 years of our lives may well be simply unhealthy or not in good health. So these programs are about making sure that we live longer and live better. So that's it in a nutshell from me. I don't want to obviously dominate too much space, but these programs are very effective. Happy to share any resource. The inclusion guide, which you saw briefly on the screen before, I will invite anyone through the webinar to come along next week with the author, Marie Futrell. Please do, and it'll be available to all people, not just ACA members across the future. So hopefully it will help us be more inclusive as a sector, but also as a society.
Brilliant. Has anyone got any questions for Mick or Pete on what they've spoken about today? I take silence. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Dave.
Mick, have you ever met a guy named David Strickland from Sport and Recreation Victoria? Yeah.
I don't think I've come across David yet, but I can look him up.
Okay. Yeah. Look, I'll put your details up and I'll introduce you. He's our outdoor guy down here, but he works closely in the same area in Victoria, and maybe you could share some ideas. Yeah.
That'd be great, David. Thank you. I'll pop him in the chat box now.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions at all, or anyone want to give an insight into anything that they're doing in this space that might bring some ideas for other operators that really haven't got into this yet? Got quite a few on the line. I'm just trying to see who's here. Feel free to add it to the chat if you do, but yeah, thanks for that link too, Pete. And I hear you, David, young on the inside. Yep, that's me too. Okay, great, guys. Thank you so much for presenting that. And I think it's exceptionally important as we also try to understand where potential markets are. And if you are not in this space, I strongly urge you to get in touch with the guys and really look at it. Yeah, as I say, I couldn't believe the depth and breadth of some of the obstacles in this space. And if we can start making a way to that, I agree with Mick. Let's be the leader. New South Wales ACT, let's go and get into this space. So thanks, guys. Really appreciate that. We've got a few other topics, so we'll jump on to them. The first one is David Maskell. There you are. I can see you now. David, do you want to give a bit of an insight into where Inside the Outhouse is up to?
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Excellent. Sometimes I get audio problems at home. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Just a quick update. Sri Mullins, one of my colleagues from Inside the Outhouse, is in the meeting as well, representing New South Wales. We're have finally rolled out as a soft opening our website, insidetheouthouse.org. So we've consolidated the last 16 weeks of videos and discussions around topics as diverse as stuff that's mentioned this morning around insurance, COVID practices and policies. It's a forum and a discussion group for outdoor educators, but we welcome everybody just to have a bit of a mental health check-in on a Monday at 4:17. Pete Smith hosts, along with Cherie, Henry Friend, Ellen Barker and myself, and we just like everyone to go and have a look at our new website. All the videos are up there, so you don't need to go to social media to look at those, but I'll post all the links into the well, Cherie's already doing it into the chat briefly. But this week, we're going to be discussing programming and how those programs that you're developing for years and years and years and finessing have changed due to COVID-19. So we'd love to see people come into the Outhouse and to share what they are thinking and feeling about what's looking like post-COVID or during COVID programming once we get operational again, moving forward into the rest of the year. So 4:17 on Zoom, and we'll share the link.
Awesome.
Thanks very much.
Cherie, did you want to just quickly, I just made you a co-host. You want to share I can't get the website up for some reason. I think that my internet's trying to battle with Zoom and Explorer. So
yeah, no problem. Give me a second and I'll show you the page. Just gotta make sure I'm on it. So I should be able to share screen now.
beautiful. So from what the guys were telling me, this has got quite a lot of content that will help people in the space of education. And they've been spending a lot of hours getting this up, and it's all volunteer hours. So congratulations, guys. I think this is a great achievement and really, really exciting.
Yeah, so we have a lot of different resources and stuff, everything that we've kind of gotten through our webinar series. You can join in the discussion yourself and kind of add comments to our website. And then we have direct links to our webinar, which is at 4:17 on the East Coast and on Mondays.
Great.
And yeah, it's a strange time, but it's it's how we are quirky being in the house. We're also on the 24th lining up an industry forum to discuss the tertiary sector, given all the recent declines in programming in the outdoor ed sector, and we already have commitments from my local university, USC, and hoping to get some others on board to talk about where the industry's placed with COVID and specifically outdoor ed programs and outdoor recreation courses. So we're reaching out to networks far and wide. So if you're interested in having that discussion, we'd love to hear from you on the 24th. But again, next Monday, 4:17.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate you bringing that to us, and yeah, jump on board if you're in that space. So my second one here is Mark from Mulga. Where are you? There you are. Do you want to unmute yourself and show us? You had a question that you wanted to raise with the sector around temperature checking.
Yeah, hang on a sec. Yep. Yes. Yeah, we're sitting in the lounge room on a big screen. So it's we're keen on. We're looking at doing pre-screening with temperature checking, and started looking at the different thermometers that are out there, and there's a wide range in pricing. You can get down to $50 up to around about $400. Just wondering if anybody else was doing the same thing, what models people were using. Yeah, things that we were looking at if we're going to exclude people based on their temperature. We need something we know is accurate, and there's not many out there that come with calibration certificates. So if you're ever going to have an argument with anybody, you could turn around and say, well, look, this unit's been calibrated. It's plus and minus 0.2 of a degree. Yeah, so it's just a general question.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Mark. Has anyone got any insight into what they're doing or some challenges that they've faced? Who is?
I might just chip in. I'm doing a bit of work on the exact thing at the moment. So I'm happy to share that when we get it together. So it's pulling some stuff together from all sorts of sources around WorkSafe and so forth. So I'll send that through to Laurie when we're done, and she can send it around to this group.
Thank you. Michael, you might have some audio problems, but he's saying we're using the FAMIDOC. I'm assuming that's an acronym, infrared non-contact thermometer. It works well and does the job. So there's one piece there. So Pete, you might want to look at that one too as part of your work. That's great. It was about $100. Is there anyone not temperature testing that have worked out another method to screen?
I've got another question, Laurie.
Yep.
What is the cutoff that people are using on the thermometer? For example, the Queensland industry-based plan suggests from the Mater Hospital suggestion is 37.9, which is getting up on the high side. Just wondering what other people are using. Yeah, and
the ambulance service in Victoria use 37.5 for their staff, and I've got a couple of people that drive ambulances working with me, and we've adopted that just because that seems to be a reasonable thing. You've actually got to have quite a high temperature to be 37.5 or above. You've got to watch things like beanies. If you've got a beanie on, yeah, you've got to take it off and get back to down to room temperature, so to speak, outside. Yeah, so it's not, you do have to be careful when you do the tests. Yeah, and it's only part of what we do. It's just a little bit of the part. Have you been to Melbourne? What other questions a business might have to ask?
Yeah.
It's not the only thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Simone was just saying. that's her method as well. So doing the checks, but asking about the hotspots.
Yeah, the other thing is, the other thing that the argument that was given to us for using it was that it reinforces your seriousness to your guests about the pre-screening questionnaire that you would run, which is, have you been to a hotspot? Do you have any of these symptoms? By just the fact of getting them knowing that you're actually going to check as well is an important part of the testing process. So that's the only reason that we've decided to use it. Yeah, I'd be keen to see what everybody sends in.
Yeah.
Look, I think the issue for me is that I don't think that a camp or an outdoor activity is inherently dangerous, but I do think the optics of someone arriving at your site or joining your activity and then having the spread come from there will certainly get across the front page. It'll be camps become a source of COVID-19.
Exactly.
So really the pre-screening is a critical part here. And yes, that does include your staff. But I just want to read a short bit from WorkSafe, which basically say that temperature checks will not tell whether a person has coronavirus. A person may have a temperature for many other reasons, be on a medication which reduces their temperature, or may not exhibit any symptoms. So it's one of those things which maybe may look more valuable than it actually is. But you're right in the sense that it does underline your commitment to expecting your guests and your staff to not come with their own well, and B, looking like you are doing as best you possibly can.
Yes. Yeah, Brad mentioned that, he said, are you doing both employees and participants? So it's good you mentioned that. And the TGA approval, some thermometers actually come with that. So that's a good point there, Brad. Ryan, did you want to talk to your point there?
Yeah, for sure. I suppose it's come about for us through just talking with individual clients, and we've taken the approach to use temperature checking not necessarily as a hard and fast before kids come on program with us, but more importantly, it's used, or we will be using it. So, for example, you've got the situation where a student presents with symptoms whilst they're on program with you, and it might be. They present with symptoms, or maybe they're not presenting with symptoms, but they're saying they are feeling quite unwell. But that might have come about because of anxiety or a number of other factors. So we're using it really as a tool to inform our decisions, obviously in consultation with individuals and parents. So I suppose it's part of our combined approach to screening and assessing kids and staff and teachers on program, but also it's we are working with each of our clients as to what they require and what their processes are, and adapting as we need to.
No, that's good. Thank you. Thank you for contributing that. Yeah, and Simone, that's a really good point. if you're doing exercise and you're temperature checking, yeah, you'd have to make sure that you're not misreading that temperature on something else. No, that's really good. And oh, okay, Mark, thank you for sharing that. I think that's useful for everyone else too. So, so that's your link to your pre-screening. Brilliant. Okay, that's really good. Just if there's no more discussion on that, I'm happy to take other comment as we go through the last section, but notice the time and we've only got 5 minutes left. Reminder about 4 p.m. today, which is happy hour. So if you want to continue any of these conversations or just generically have a chat, make sure you jump onto Facebook and get the link of the happy hour, which is at 4 o'clock every Friday. It's your mental health start to the weekend, whether it be busy or quiet. But just some updates on JobKeeper. I don't know, remember last week I gave you a bit of an update on the extension, but there's been an update and some lowering of the conditions on the JobKeeper extension. So just if you're interested, the GST now only has to fall over 1 quarter instead of the 3, which was as part of the original guidelines. So all you've got to do is prove that your GST has fallen over the 1 quarter now. They are also adding employees that were employed after the 1st of July, as opposed to the 1 March original date. So that means that new entries can come into the JobKeeper system. You do need to reapply after the 28th of September. So don't think it's just going to roll on and still be on your portal. You need to reapply. So the first extension starts the 28th and the second extension starts on the 4th of January. And in the 4th of January one, you need to prove that your GST has fallen in that December quarter for that to continue into January. So definitely consult your accountant on it, but that's what the latest is out of the government on those guidelines for JobKeeper. And as we know, it's been incredibly important for our sector to keep going. Yesterday's data that came from the ABS just shows that we are now the worst hit sector, sport and recreation, when it comes to job loss in the country. So I think stuff we all knew, but certainly now we've got a big challenge ahead of us to get us back on track. Guys, thank you again for being with us today, and thank you again to Mick and Pete for your wonderful contribution. And I think the guys have left from the Commissioner's office, but so good that we could have the Deputy Ombudsman with us today and hearing what our sector situation is. And I encourage you to go on the right link, the one that's the second link there, and fill out that survey and make sure you contribute your experience to that. Cameron, that looks important. Do you want to just quickly talk to that? You may not have voice. Cameron's just said all 8 supplies. TGA approval should be mandatory for thermometers. So something important to note, accuracy should be plus or minus 0.2 degrees. Also, the pistol shape makes it easier to read at the same height as opposed to the standard shape. Great information. No, his mic is bad. Okay, no worries, Cam. Hopefully I interpreted that well for you. No, that's really great information. Thank you for sharing. I'll save that and make sure if anyone misses that, I can share it with them later. So guys, you've got 3-minute early mark. Thank you again for joining us for our session. Next Friday, we are hearing from the New South Wales Business Chamber, and they're doing some huge advocacy in our space, and now we've managed to get the outdoors considered as part of the tourism portfolio there. So Nicole O'Donnell will be joining us, and I might give a little bit more insight into understanding more about the tourism sector from my experience. So if you're sick of hearing me, skip next week, but if you want to hear more from me, come along next week, and we'll look forward to talking with you then. Have a great weekend, have a great week, and talk to you soon. Bye all. Oh, good, Kim. Hey, Brad. How you hanging up? Where is he? No, I think Brad's gone for coffee. Yep, cool. Thanks, guys. Yeah, so Stuart, we'll make sure we